There is a particular sense of discomfort that I feel when I'm thinking or talking about Larptubers that I couldn't really put into words until I saw this channel called Technolarp. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you're completely clueless, Larptubing is this online trend that started in May of 2026, where people reenact or live action roleplay as their favorite YouTubers. Now, inherently, there's nothing wrong with this, and this trend began with this YouTuber named Larptubers, who over the course of the last 2 months, has kind of had this meteoric rise to fame, amassing 150,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views. And now that's an achievement. He's already got his play button, and now there are channels LARPing like every big name, from Moist Critical to Jacksepticeye, and even like Nigahiga, Smosh, and the Living Tombstone. Now, I did watch some of these channels growing up, but for the most part, these huge ones were kind of in my peripheral vision, as far as YouTube channels go. That is, with the sole exception of the Minecraft YouTube scene, which I'd say I was like a lot more emotionally invested into. The Minecraft YouTube community was the first one that I felt like genuinely engaged with and a part of, starting with EthosLab back like, what, 14 years ago when he started his Let's Play. I joined in around like episode 100 or something, but still, he's come a long way since then. But anyways, I have a really strong nostalgic connection to a lot of these YouTubers, but specifically one I had a very strong connection to was the orphan slaying pig king himself. It started with Bajan Canadian and ASF Jerome with their Hunger Games, but then I found Techno, and I started watching Techno shortly after he started transitioning from Blitz survival games into more like Sky Wars and Bed Wars content around a decade ago. I remember seeing for the first time his 100,000 subscriber special, and specifically thinking that this was an achievement that he would never top. And month after month, I got proved wrong. He peaked higher and higher. And as a viewer, it was kind of crazy watching someone go from Blitz survival games number 496 to collaborating with Dream and shattering records on Minecraft Mondays against PewDiePie, Mr. Beast, and like Ninja. I was like, holy cow, he is a really big deal. And I felt like he was going to be a mainstay in the Minecraft YouTube landscape as a whole. And you know how you get with YouTubers that you meet really early in their career who later blow up? You think like, wow, I was actually there. I was there when he created like his first couple of videos before going completely viral and going completely mainstream. And in some small way, you feel, that you're part of this journey. As a creator, you help them in like some teeny tiny like millionth of a way, and that was a feeling that felt pretty good. And then seemingly out of nowhere, he got diagnosed with this sarcoma tumor in July of 2021. And within a year of that diagnosis, he was dead. And it's not like me to get emotionally affected by like celebrity deaths. I hate to call it that. But Techno was an exception to me. Here was this kid, barely 2 years older than I was at the time, who had his entire life and career ahead of him. He was funny, and he was smart and talented, and he was removed from this planet prematurely by forces beyond his control. Now, the loss of Technoblade to me was devastating. And with this context in mind, I'd like to talk about Technolarp, or at least try to approach the topic more broadly than some other people, because I've seen other people try to approach this topic and like touch on the points where they feel that it just feels a little off. And I want to elaborate my like personal experience, or like my kind of visceral experience with how I reacted to the creation of Technolarp. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's funny, or Technoblade would enjoy this type of thing. But to me, that's kind of like you're putting words into the mouth of like a dead person, or like you're speaking for somebody who can't really speak for themselves. And while I think it's likely that Technoblade could have enjoyed it, you can't really postulate on that, given the fact that, he can't say anything. And more specifically, let me illustrate this point. I was talking to my girlfriend about Technolarp the other day, and she said something that stuck with me. She said, imagine being Technoblade's dad and just hearing somebody that sounds like your kid. And, I just thought about it and I was like, isn't that kind of fucked up? I don't think the creator behind Technolarp has bad intentions. In fact, the sheer accuracy of his voice and the style of content and everything that shows like a massive amount of dedication and respect for at least the craft of creating videos. But in my opinion, I think there's a difference between keeping someone's memory alive and trying to in a way kind of reanimate their ghost, because on the internet everything is content to people. Everything is an aesthetic or a trend or a format to be replicated and optimized. We talk about the Larptubing phenomena like it's just some fascinating new meta or like a quirky byproduct of culture that's starved for authenticity of old YouTube. And we analyze the voice accuracy, the editing style, the subscriber count of the person, and we give importance to those things that build up the components of a channel. But viewing Larptubing only through that lens kind of removes the human element of YouTube that we actually long for. And what my girlfriend hit on and what she said reminded me that Techno wasn't just this legendary Minecraft creator, and he wasn't just a character. He was a person. He was Alex. He was a real human being whose absence left a permanent and painful crater in the lives of people who actually knew him and loved him. When an imitation is that precise, it isn't just a harmless tribute. It is, in fact, actively harmful to the same people that knew him. People who had to bury him 4 years ago and say goodbye to a real human being who lived and died. And that was the moment I kind of decided I can't watch these videos. I can't even sit through 5 minutes before feeling sick to my stomach. And it's not because they're bad videos. It's not because they're not entertaining, and it's not because I'm like morally outraged at him or because he's a bad person, because he's not a bad person. In fact, it's more a testament to how uncannily accurate it is that it makes me like so kind of viscerally uncomfortable. And the irony of missing old YouTube is that we miss it because it felt real. It felt real, authentic, and original. But in my opinion, you can't build real authenticity out of being a carbon copy of another person, No matter how hard you try, you can't replicate a soul. Technoblade was one of one. And it's possible that the best way to fill that void is kind of just by leaving it alone and letting it be. Yeah. Anyways, donate to the Sarcoma Foundation. It's a really good cause. And have a good day. Thank you.